Hi everyone, how is it going today? I don't know that there's anyone on yet, but we'll record this and people can share it as they see fit. We're getting into our second week of quarantine, and so we're starting to figure things out. Although I'm still figuring out technology, is trying to figure out how to be a Facebook Live aficionado without ever doing it before. So thank you all for bearing with me as we are working through this process of figuring out how to share information with you about what is happening in the museum. Once again, I'm Lizzie Kander. I'm the Education Director at Jewish Museum Milwaukee. And today I'm going to try a pretty low-tech approach just to make sure I'm getting the story across and that we're not missing any details, and that I'm not trying, that we don't end up with some sort of crazy screen that's going da-da-da-da, or that I just don't, it doesn't happen. So low-tech, me talking, and some pictures that I will hold up just like this. So the centerpiece of our story today is a woman named Lizzie Black Kander. And we're going to focus mostly today on her childhood. And this is actually a fabulous book. It was written by the Wisconsin Historical Society. It's part of their Badger Bio series. It is a great series for middle readers, especially about people who are important to Wisconsin history, like Lizzie Black Kander. Other people include Belle and Bob LaFollette. It's a huge series, so definitely check out these books if you're looking for some ways of doing Wisconsin history with your kids right now. But this one is a great one of exploring kind of early Wisconsin Jewish life, the conflicts that happen between Wisconsin, between the earlier German Jewish immigrants like Lizzie and the later Russian and Eastern European Jewish immigrants, and how they both connected and disconnected all of those challenges that they faced. As I said, Lizzie was one of those early settlers. Her parents came early on, and that she was born in Wisconsin. Her dad owned a store. They were pretty affluent. She sometimes helped out in the store. There's a moment that she met Abraham Lincoln as a small child. It really impacted her. And she ends up going to high school when there's only one high school in Milwaukee. You know, a big deal, like that a girl at that age is going to high school. And, you know, it's a pretty cool thing. One of the things that I love that I got from this book is that at that time, to go to high school, you had to take a test to get in. And a test to get in, you're like, what could that possibly mean? And what would be on a test to get into high school? And the test to get into high school included things like name the river system of South America, which all of us can go on really quickly onto Google and figure that out, or define this, what a fjord is. For some reason, I always remember the geography questions. One of them is name the 7 largest cities in Wisconsin and what they're best known for. So if anybody in the comments wants to throw that out, what are the 7 biggest cities in Wisconsin and what they're best known for? Maybe you too can go to high school. So Lizzie goes to high school, and she is elected at the end of her high school tenure valedictorian, which I think shows some great leadership at the time. You know, that this is her peers saying, this is the person we want to represent us at the at commencement. Now, I've looked at this speech, but I haven't looked at this speech in a couple of years. In 2016, I had one of my interns, Sharon Cohen, who was a great, phenomenal intern, do a blog post about this. And I'll share the blog post she wrote at the time, because the title of this commencement address from 1878 is When I Become President. When I Become President, a young Jewish girl in Milwaukee is writing this in 1878. And that feels a little revolutionary. So in 2016, as we had the first viable female candidate for president, I thought, hey, that's an interesting thing. Let's see where this goes. And it was really interesting, actually, as we started reading through the text of the speech, that it was much more in the realm of populism, both populism on the side of something much more in line with, say, Bernie Sanders, and populism in line sometimes with Donald Trump. It's a really bizarre speech. And I'm going to read to you a little bit from this speech that, see my very high-tech picture, that Lizzie Kander gave at her commencement. You can see she is a pretty affluent looking lady, even as a young girl here. This picture we recently had donated to the archives, and it was quite For my archivist and I, Jay Highland, we were pretty excited about this because it went from our earliest picture of her before she was in her mid-20s, and suddenly we have a picture of her as a teen, and it was kind of nice. But this content of this speech you can find at Wisconsin Historical Society, and I'll post the link after. And it was written up in the Milwaukee newspaper, and they say about it, the following number on the program was an essay by Miss Lizzie Black on When I'm President, which proved to be the event of the evening. When she concluded, she was greeted with a prolonged applause and received a large number of baskets of flowers and bouquets. We can all hope that someday we give a speech that gives us bouquets and baskets of flowers. So the first part, and if you're not getting all the context before this and you're tuning in right now, this is not a commentary on our current administration. This is a historical speech from 1878. The Earth will scarcely have moved 50 times round its orbit before the sun will look down on a deserted country, unless a change takes place in the government and we have at its head an honest, reliable person who shall be a friend to the rich and the poor alike. 1878, man. The other thing that comes up in the next paragraph, which I find fascinating, is she is talking about the 1876 election. And I think I knew this at one time, but I didn't remember this, that she's saying we are all aware of the fact that some of them, and this is that there was a conflicted election in 1876. Hayes, Rutherford B. Hayes, wins the Electoral College, and a guy from New York named Tilden actually wins the popular vote. And they call him the little man of Gramercy Park, occupying the presidential chair. Now, I'm not here to advocate the claims of either. I want this great presidential question settled to the satisfaction of all. You may hitherto lived in ignorance of the fact, but you have one thing who can, one among you who can untie this Gordian knot. The only way to settle this difficulty, ladies and gentlemen, without bloodshed is by ousting Hayes, barring the White House doors on Tilden, and by electing me to that position. So there you go. She's going to be elected to position, and she then quotes Henry Clay saying, I feel like that other patriot Henry Clay, I'd rather be president than be right. So, and now I'm being joined by my daughter. Go away. I saw how, she goes on to say, I saw how sadly in need our country was of an able hand to steer the ship of state through all the storms that are now threatening to encounter it. She says, commerce, on which the very life of our nation depends, is almost entirely destroyed, and if we allow this state of affairs to go on much longer, we shall soon be isolated from the rest of the world like China. The wealth of the nation is in the hands of very few individuals who are accumulating more every day, while the poor are becoming more and more miserable. Kind of a crazy sentiment again for 1878. She goes on to talk about Congress and bribes and the inability to be honest. We cannot blame congressmen for taking bribes. If we would give enough reward for their services, they would not be tempted to forget they are in the position of great responsibility. And so if we have to give out a few $1,000s more yearly as salary, we would in the end save millions, and our public work would be done more cheerfully and better. She also acknowledges she wants to cut herself off from the rest of the world. She says, now, when you elect me president, I want you to understand that $2,500 is all I'm going to ask. I don't see the sense in going to the expense of having grand dinners, receptions, and banquets for foreign ministers, ambassadors. We don't care about just being on friendly terms with any nation. A war would be just the thing we want at present to help get rid of our surplus population and to stimulate trade. It is a harsh message from a 17-year-old girl. I think this is such an interesting statement. And I think it's such a radical way of presenting a speech. And I'm delighted to be able to share this with you. And I'm delighted to be able to talk about, what her expectations were after she finishes high school. Because once she finishes high school, she then has this kind of challenge of, can I go to college? No, at this point, college isn't really open to women like her. And she is an affluent lady. She doesn't need to work. So our next chapter remember I said there'd be a cliffhanger, is all about what does Lizzie Kander do with this abundance of ambition, intellect, and talent. So join me on Wednesday to get the next part of the story. In the comments, I'm going to post links to her speech, links to our blog, links to the Badger Bio series, and a few other pictures and things so you get a sense of Lizzie and the beginnings of the story. And we'll do a little bit more on Wednesday. Thanks so much. Not Wednesday, sorry, Thursday at 2. See you then and have a great day.